All right. Kevin, today I want you to talk to people about how you got your very first major hub collection and how that kind of changed what we do here at Potter USA. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think it's probably close to 10 years ago.
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Cool. So I was out in Providence, Rhode Island, and we were going to a machinery dealer because we were looking for some new equipment, and we were also looking for hubs and dies. And I was trying to make a deal. If any of you guys have ever, actually, if you want to go to see a really cool website, it's called Gold Machinery, and the guy's name was David Gold, and they were one of the largest machinery dealers for jewelry equipment in the United States. And he was legendary to deal with. Anyway, he was really a difficult person to deal with. Nice guy, but it was hard. And I'd gone there to try to make a deal on a company that had closed. I was trying to buy their hubs, and we never could come to a deal. And when I was there, my friend Dave Manny called me and said, "You're in Providence?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, meet me over at the New York System." And it's like this hot dog place. And it's really great hot dogs, but it's rough though. I mean, they actually put salt on the floor so you don't slip on the grease. I'm not kidding. It's a whole new level of grease. And I'm not allowed to eat there anymore. My wife won't let me go. And even my own kid is like, don't know if we can do that, Dad. So anyway, we're sitting at the New York System eating hot wieners and coffee milk. And Dave tells me, all right, he has a good friend who has a whole bunch of hubs and dies that he needs to get rid of. They need to be sold. But he told me, he goes, "You can't go in there alone. I have to introduce you or he'll throw you out." So we walk across the street to this big factory, and we go upstairs to the third floor, and I get to meet Duke. And Duke passed away just a couple of years ago, but he was in his 90s when I met him. And he was a tough guy. And I tried to explain to him what we did and how we used the dies. And he said, and I remember this distinctly, him telling me, he goes, "Okay, so why would they want to stamp a die when they can just buy a stamping from me?" And I said, "Well, they want to do it themselves." And I remember him saying, because he'd seen my YouTube videos and he saw the presses that we built, and he's like, "If you tell me that they cut it out with a saw after they stamp it, I'm going to drop you where you stand." And I take a step back because he's usually kind of serious. And I was like, "Yeah, they cut it with a saw." And he's just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And I said, "Well, they're doing it for fun." And he goes, "This isn't fun." What the hell? You know, he swears like a Rhode Islander. And so anyway, he tells me, he goes, "I got a lot of hubs and a lot of dies." And he just says, "Go up there and take a look at what we got and make me an offer." So we go, it's a multi-story building. There's some pictures in there, you'll see. And we go into the entire floor is covered. I mean, we're talking about a space that's 100,000 square feet. And there is just pallets and pallets and pallets of hubs and dies. Like tens of, well, I don't even know how many. We made 29 pallets and we consolidated them, and we brought an entire semi-truckload back home with us. But he told me to make him an offer. So when I was at Duke's, I'd never seen so many. Like, this is the biggest collection I've ever seen in my life. And he tells me, make an offer. And I was like, I don't have that kind of money. And I remember telling that to his daughter, because his daughter, Duke was in a wheelchair. And his daughter took me down there, and she's like, "Just make an offer." And I said, I honestly don't have this kind of money. And she's like, "Just make an offer. Do the best you can." So I'll just tell you, I said $10,000, and when I didn't have $10,000, but I knew that I could probably get it with cash advances on credit cards, and she took him the offer, and he said yeah, I almost cried. I was like, it was almost like I didn't know what to do. There was so much there, and then I realized the problem. We couldn't eat. I only had a day or two left in Providence, and my friend Steve and we ended up like canceling our flights and staying for an extra week to move and palletize all the hubs and dies, and we couldn't take it all, not even close. There was so much. We took 29 pallets, which didn't even dent it. I mean, I didn't even make a dent in the collection. It was so massive. But I remember going to the bank. I had to go to multiple banks with all my credit cards, and we borrowed from our home equity loan. And I basically mortgaged my house, and I maxed out all my credit cards, and then had to get more credit cards to pay for the truck to get this stuff back to Tucson. So when I got home, we had no money. We were way in the hole. And we couldn't even unload the trucks that came because we didn't own a forklift at that point. So I had to store everything at a friend's shop who owned a forklift and had the room to store it all. And yeah, that's really what set us on the path. Once we were able to get that collection, it really helped us, get a good base to start the company and start offering dies and hubs and stampings and all kinds of stuff. And we're still working off that collection today. It was at least 20,000 hubs, all from one company. So it was pretty amazing. And I'm eternally grateful to those guys, to Duke and Laura, and Dave Manny. If it wasn't for Dave, we would never have gotten that. Because, Dave was their friend, and he helped them, he introduced me. And there was no way we could have done it without Dave's help either. It would have been impossible, because he helped us load all the pallets, which was completely backbreaking.
So aside from hubs, you got a couple other things that are in our shop now from Parisi, right?
Yeah.
The drop hammers.
The drop hammers, the big drop hammers that you guys see in our videos, those came from Parisi Tool.
Let's go show them the drop
Yeah,
hammers.
let's go show you.
All right. You guys see these?
Yeah. So these are the hammers that came out of Parisi Tool. They had a whole line of these. I only say we were able to get 3 of them. I don't know what happened to the rest. I'm afraid to know what happened to the rest. But there was a line of them, and they were on the 3rd floor of the factory. They had to be craned out of the side of the building because they're too heavy for the elevator. That didn't really work. So these came, this is a 200-pounder, this is a 4. Jeremiah restored this one completely. So it's been completely overhauled. All brand new belts, bushings, everything's been cleaned up, and it works beautifully. We haven't done this one yet. It still works really good, mostly because it is so heavy we can't handle it. Our forklifts can't lift the components up. So we've just been using it as is. So when I was offered these, they were essentially free. But my wife told me when they were offered to me, and this is after we'd bought all their hubs and dies, and we'd been back in town for probably a few months.
And you already spent all your money.
We had no money. And my wife, I got a phone call from Duke, and he said, "Do you want the drop hammers?" And I was like, "I can't afford them." And he goes, "No, they're free. You just pay to move them." So I got really excited, and I told my wife. And my wife said, "Honey, you can have anything you want except money." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't take that as a no. I just took that as I have to raise the money. So in order to raise the money, I got a quote. I called the rigging company to ask them how much they would charge to move these hammers out of the 3rd floor of a building. And the second I called him, he knew exactly the hammers I was talking about, and he knew everything about it. And he says it's going to be $8,000, and he hung up the phone. And I was like, well, okay, I have to raise $8,000. I didn't take that as, if you've ever heard of the word, the FU price, well, that's what that was. So anyway, we needed to raise $8,000. So this came from Parisi Tool, and it's the Junior Justice League badge. I remember I found this when I was moving hubs and dies. It fell off of a pallet when I was moving a pallet across the room, and I hurt so bad that I didn't actually want to pick up anything because I didn't care at that point about any hubs and dies. But I thought, well, maybe it's a good one. So I reach down and I pick it up, and I see what looks, I don't know what the Junior Justice League is. And I just see, I look at it, it looks like a crosswalk guard badge for like an elementary school. And I'm like, oh God. So I just throw it back on the pallet. And I'm like, well, that wasn't worth it, was it? Bending over. And anyway.
And then Vincent knew what it was, right?
Vincent knew what this was, because he's the big researcher. Let's go into a quieter area.
Okay.
So my son, I threw these back on the pallet, and everything came back to Tucson. There was stuff rolling around in the bed of my pickup truck, and my son found this in the bed of the pickup truck, and he comes running into the shop and says, Dad, we got the Junior Justice League. And he shows me the die, and I remember it because I'm like, oh my God, that's the one I picked up, that I had to bend over to pick up, that I could hardly move at that point. I was practically crippled after a week of moving dies. And he's all excited, and he tells me what it is. And it's for DC Comics. It's Superman, it's Wonder Woman, it's all those guys. And it occurred to me that I could use this die to save the drop hammers. Because the way they were going to remove the drop hammers from the building, they were going to push them out the side of the building and just let them fall to the ground. And what we did was, because these were like selling for like $200 in a brass stamping, what's pretty funny is I didn't take the tray full of brass stampings with me, because there was all these sample stampings that had been stamped in the 40s from this die. But anyway, we stamped a bunch in sterling silver.
Yeah, you did a run of 100.
Yeah, we did a run of 100 of them, and we were able to raise enough money to pay to move the hammers. So it took about, 2 weeks, and I call the rigging company back in Providence, and I tell them, I go, I got the money. And the guy goes, the money for what? And I go, to move the drop hammers. And it's just silence on the phone. And I'm like, hello? Hello? And he's like, yeah, I'm here. And I go, can you do it? And he goes, yeah, I can do it, but I don't want to do it. And he says, have you ever heard of an FU price? And I said, well, yeah. And he goes, well, that was mine. You were supposed to say, and I said, but I really want those hammers. And he said, why? No one wants those hammers. This is insane. And I go, well, I've raised the money. Can you do it? And he goes, yeah, I'll do it. And I asked him, could you take some pictures and maybe a little video so that I can see them coming out? And he goes, oh, I'm going to take video. And every time I offer an FU price, I'm going to watch this video to remind myself not to do it. So he takes a video of himself being lifted up he's sitting in a forklift on a platform, and they have a crane, and it's lifting him to the 3rd floor of the building, where they've cut a hole in the side of the building, and they drive the forklift off the platform into the building. And that's how they had to move these things. They had to take the power lines down because they were too close to the crane, and it was the biggest fiasco. But these guys are professionals. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing. And they got all of the drop hammers out. They disassembled them, laid them all down, built pallets and crates, and shipped them to me. And
but now we're so lucky because we have the original hammers
yes, we have the original
to strike
hammers.
all the original dies.
And we had to dig a 5-foot deep hole, fill it with concrete. They had them suspended above the floor on literally giant redwood trees. They were, it was a single beam, and it was suspended on leaf springs.
Just to absorb
the shock. So there was a whole bank of these. I think they had 10 hammers in a row, and they were up on these great big leaf springs. This had been done in the 1800s, okay?
It's amazing.
So it was really amazing. But they disassembled all the hammers and got them to us, and we've been using them ever since. And they've been a key to our, being able to create new hubs and dies. Without those drop hammers, it's difficult to do it. So we're able to do it now, and that's how we've been able to get you guys all these new hubs that you guys can work from, and all the dies.
Let's go show them the Parisi collection.
Yeah. Okay, so when you guys saw that big collection of all the pallets on the floor, what we do is we have to, we can't hold that much stuff. We don't have 100,000 square feet. So what we do is we condense everything down to just the original art. And that is really the only thing we're able to save.
Just the hubs.
Just the master hubs, forces if I can't find an original hub. I will keep some dies that are really beautiful. We do what we can. I remember when I was there, I called Peter from the Providence Jewelry Museum, and I told him what we'd done, and he goes, I can't believe you just got the biggest collection in America. And so he came out to help me, and we're looking through it, and he's like, Kevin, you are going to go bankrupt if you try to move this entire thing. You're going to have to just save the art. That's all you can do. And and at the time it bothered me to no end, but I realized pretty quickly that I was going to go broke, completely bankrupt, trying to move the collection.
And then you can't save any.
Then we would be out of business. And that's exactly what he told me. He goes, if you go out of business on this, you're going to lose everything. So let me show you what we've got. I'll start with my favorite drawer.
Are you looking for the faces?
Yeah,
I think maybe it's number 4 or 5.
That's right here.
Oh, okay.
So,
oh yeah.
What we did was we went through it and we saved all the best, or at least what I hoped that I thought was the best stuff. And it's really hard to have to decide. But
what's worthy and what's
right.
Yeah.
It's actually horrible. I really hate doing it. But it comes down to it's just impossible to save everything. Early Indian. This is a really early hub. He had me save certain ones of these. They're really special. They're very old.
Look at that cat. Look at his
I know, isn't he
teeth.
great? Yeah.
I mean, you guys, if you think about how each one of these was made, it's so crazy.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for all the faces and heads. They're my favorites. Here's look at that thing. They're just amazing.
So amazing.
Yeah. The bulldogs. I mean, I did what I could do. We saved all the hubs, regardless of what they were. So all of these cabinets, these 2 cabinets are all Parisi tool. And
that's all that's left.
It's all that's left. I do have some of their best dies, but we had to shrink it down because it was such a massive collection that we saved what we thought was the best. So.
And this is what really got Kevin started on collecting these hubs from these companies, and it's grown. He has hubs from over 50 companies now.
Yeah.
But this is one of our largest collections, and it was the first really large collection that Kevin was able to accrue.
Once we got this big collection,
it really helped us because we were able to produce enough dyes. Before, we were producing very limited amount of dyes because you have to make them. And when we got this collection, it really helped us expand because it gave us a huge variety. Look at this one.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, they did beautiful work, really beautiful work. So once we got this, it helped us so much because we were able to use all this stuff to help us raise more money to get more collections.
But every single one of you is helping save these hubs.
Yeah,
And that's
I mean,
what
you
we
can see
wanted to
this-
share with you today.
So, like, I know where a lot of this stuff came from. I remember I got this from David Gold. I got this off his desk. And this was made for the Kentucky Derby. And it was a letter opener. A letter opener stuck onto here. And, yeah, pretty cool, huh? Yeah, so we have a little bit of everything here from all, it's pretty much the entire history of jewelry making in America and some countries, and we've managed to save all their stuff. So we really appreciate you guys. Thanks.